In this very second, you just watched $5 million burn. Before you stands the T-90M breakthrough, the pinnacle of Russian tank engineering, multi-layered composite armor, relight explosive reactive armor designed to shatter kinetic penetrators, panoramic sights, the Kalina fire control system. They called this machine the flying tank, an unkillable monster. It was built to duel Abrams and Leopards. This machine took 40 years to create. The best minds, entire institutes, and massive design bureaus worked on it. It is a god of war, fresh off the assembly line, and this is its killer, an FPV drone, a frame made of Chinese carbon fiber, 4 electric motors from AliExpress, a $30 flight controller, and a shaped charge from an old Soviet RPG-7, strapped on with blue electrical tape. Total cost, $450, maybe $500, the price of a nice dinner in New York City. In one corner of the ring, the annual budget of a small town. In the other, a toy that a student cobbled together in a garage while drinking coffee. And the giant loses. Time and time again. This isn't just a change in tactics. It is the collapse of a military doctrine that has dominated for the last 100 years. We are watching the death of the tank, live on air. Or perhaps, is this its agonizing evolution? Generals are rewriting manuals in a panic. The tank, yesterday's king of the battlefield, has turned into the biggest, most expensive, and most helpless target in the history of warfare. Today, we perform an autopsy. No politics, just ruthless physics, cynical economics, and history. Вот перевод для второй части. Я сохранил инженерный, но доступный стиль. Фразы построены так, чтобы голос звучал убедительно и логично. Videoscript. The Engineering Trap. Part 2. The first question every viewer asks is, why are engineers so stupid? Why not just add armor to the roof? The answer lies in the harsh mathematics of weight. The tank was designed for two-dimensional warfare, a war on a flat plane. Almost all of its protection is concentrated at the front. Here, the armor equivalent reaches a meter of solid steel. To punch through the face of a modern tank, you need a shell with monstrous kinetic energy. For decades, engineers played a game called more armor on the front, but weight has a limit. A modern tank weighs 65 to 70 tons. This is the absolute limit for bridges, transport trailers, and railway platforms. If we add just 10 centimeters of steel to the roof, the tank would weigh 100 tons. It is always a trade-off between mass, firepower, and maneuverability. A tank that heavy simply wouldn't be able to cross a single bridge in Europe. It would bury itself in the ground. That is why the roof of any tank, whether it's a Soviet T-72, a German Leopard, or an American Abrams, is only 40 millimeters thick. On the newest modifications, maybe 80 millimeters, maximum. In modern warfare, that is not armor. That is tinfoil. And this is exactly the vulnerability that drones found. They opened up the third dimension. They attack strictly vertically, right where the tank is naked. The drone carries a shaped charge warhead. Many people think it burns through armor with fire. That is a myth. The tank isn't melted, it's stabbed. Look closely at the physics of the process. Inside the warhead is a copper cone surrounded by high explosives. Upon detonation, the blast wave collapses this cone into a hypervelocity needle, a cumulative jet. It moves at a speed of 10 kilometers per second. That is 30 times the speed of sound. The pressure at the point of impact reaches millions of atmospheres. At such extreme pressure, the laws of solid matter stop working. Steel armor behaves like a liquid. It flows. For a jet like this, 30 millimeters of roof armor simply do not exist. It passes through them like a hot knife through butter and goes straight into the fighting compartment, right into the shells, the fuel, and the crew. You might ask, but what about high tech? Active protection systems, the famous Israeli trophy, or the Russian arena, radars and interceptors designed to shoot down anything that approaches? On paper, it looks perfect. In reality, it is a failure. Reason number one, the dead zone. Tank radars look at the horizon. They're scanning for anti-tank missiles flying from the ground, from another tank, or an infantryman. Most systems have a blind spot, a cone of silence directly above the turret. A drone dropping strictly vertically is simply invisible to the radar. It falls into this dead zone, like a stone dropping down a well. Reason number two, overload. Imagine the system works perfectly. It shoots down the first drone. It shoots down the second. But tactics have changed. Now drones fly in swarms. When 5 cheap kamikazes attack a tank simultaneously from different angles, the onboard computer simply loses its mind. It runs out of reaction time and ammunition. And the third reason, money. One active protection system kit costs about $1 million. To equip thousands of tanks with them would bankrupt any nation. Yet this system is destroyed by a drone costing $500. Once again, economics laughs in the face of engineering. When million-dollar electronics failed, soldiers picked up welding torches. The era of the cope cage began. At first, people laughed. Panic-stricken tankers welded anything they could find in the junkyard onto their roofs. Bed springs, garden fences, scrap metal gates. The internet exploded with memes. Western experts contemptuously called them cope cages, cages of hope. But the laughter died down very quickly. It turned out, it works. A simple rusty grate disrupts the cumulative jet before it touches the main armor. The jet dissipates in the air. After the start of operations in Gaza, we saw the Israeli army immediately adopt this experience. Even tanks equipped with the newest active interception systems rolled onto the battlefield with welded cages already installed. But evolution went further and spawned real monsters, the Tsar Grill, or as the West calls it, the turtle tank. Soldiers sacrifice everything for survival. The tank is clad in sheets of iron until it looks like a garage on tracks. Look at it. The turret cannot rotate. There's no visibility. The gun looks only forward. This is no longer a breakthrough tank. It is a blind armored bus. Its only task is to crawl across a minefield, withstand 5 drone hits, and not burn to death. We are observing de-evolution. From the top of the food chain, from a predator, the tank has turned into a terrified prey, hiding in a shell and praying not to be noticed. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. We have seen this script before, about 600 years ago, the year 1415, the Battle of Agincourt. The flower of French chivalry takes the field. Aristocrats clad in the finest Milanese steel, riding massive destriers, war horses. They were the tanks of the Middle Ages. A suit of armor cost as much as an entire village. A knight was trained from the age of 5. They were the elite, the absolute weapon, invulnerable to swords and spears. They were certain of victory, but a longbow cost pennies, an arrow even less, and you could train an archer faster than you could raise a knight. What happened next shocked all of Europe. Arrows fired in high arcs fell from the sky. They found vulnerable gaps in the armor joints. They pierced thin helmets. They killed the horses. The great French cavalry got stuck in the mud and was methodically slaughtered from a distance. Knights worth millions in gold died from a piece of wood with an iron tip. Agincourt buried the age of chivalry not because knights became weak, but because they became economically obsolete. Look out the window. 6 centuries have passed, but the essence remains the same. The tank today is that same clumsy knight, stuck in the mud of positional warfare. And the FPV drone is the English archer's arrow. Only now this arrow has a video camera, a processor, and Wi-Fi. And the operator isn't sitting in the mud, but in a concrete bunker 10 kilometers away. Let's return to our time, back to the tanks. The most terrifying change drones brought isn't the explosives. It is transparency. Before, tankers had a best friend, the night. Under the cover of darkness, you could regroup, bring up fuel, hide in a tree line, or just rest. The tank was a predator that hunted from ambush. Drones stole the night, forever. A cheap Chinese thermal imager sees temperature differences of 1/10 of a degree. A 60-ton machine with a gas turbine engine is essentially a giant furnace. Even if you kill the engine, the metal takes hours to cool down. In the infrared spectrum, a tank lights up like a Christmas tree. Hiding a tank in the forest from a thermal camera is like trying to hide a bonfire in a dark room. You are inside an iron box. You have a narrow view through the periscopes. You are almost blind, but you know. An invisible eye hangs above you. The high-pitched whine of propellers is scarier than the roar of artillery, because artillery hits areas. But a drone comes personally for you. It sees you open the hatch. It sees you light a cigarette. It can fly right inside the turret. This creates a panopticon effect, a prison where the inmate never knows when he is being watched, and therefore must be afraid every single second. Service in the tank corps has turned into a 24-hour psychological hell. But there's another reason for the tank's death, one the news rarely mentions: logistics. A tank is not a lone wolf. It is the tip of a massive supply pyramid. Take the M1 Abrams. Its gas turbine engine is a thirsty monster. It guzzles liters of jet fuel every minute, even when it's just idling. For one tank to fight, a convoy of fuel trucks must crawl behind it, plus mechanics, spare parts. It requires a dense rear guard. And this is where drones stabbed it in the back. Drone operators realized, why try to punch through the frontal armor? Why bother when you can burn an unarmored fuel truck 10 kilometers behind the lines? A truck has no armor. It turns into a fireball with a single touch. We see hundreds of videos of abandoned tanks. They are in pristine condition. No holes, the crew is alive, but the machine is dead still. Why? Because it ran out of gas. A tank without fuel is just 60 tons of dead iron. You can't put it in a backpack. You can't hide it. You can only abandon it and run away on foot. Drones severed the arteries of supply. They don't kill the predator in a fight. They starve it, and that turned out to be more effective than any armor-piercing shell. Ultimately, wars are not won by heroes. Wars are won by accountants. Let's just do the math. One modern Abrams tank costs $10 million. One FPV drone costs $500. The math is lethal. For the price of one tank, you can buy 20,000 kamikaze drones. Just imagine that number. 20,000. Even if you have super modern active protection. Even if you shoot down 90% of the drones. Even if you shoot down 99%, 200 drones will still break through and tear the tank apart piece by piece. There's no defense against a sledgehammer if you have 20,000 of them. And the second factor is time. To build a tank, you need giant factories, special steel, rare electronics, and 6 months of labor. The loss of a tank is a tragedy for the industry. A drone is printed on a 3D printer in a nearby basement in 3 hours. School kids assemble them in shop class. In a war of attrition, the winner is the one who replaces losses faster. The tank, born in the agony of heavy industry, is losing the race to garage workshops. Does this mean the tank is dead forever? No. The concept of the manned tank is dead. The weakest link in a combat vehicle is not the armor, not the engine, and not the electronics. It is the human. A human needs space. He needs air. He needs protection from radiation. Because of the human, the tank weighs 60 tons. Remove the human, and you get the perfect predator. Small, low, fast, and cheap. The age of knights in shining armor ended in the 15th century. The age of steel monsters with people inside ends today.